Produced by Podcast Architects.
In collaboration with the Texas Association of Latino Administrators and Superintendents, I'm proud to bring you the TALAS Partnership Spotlight. This is an opportunity to speak with school district leaders from across the state as we discuss common problems, barriers, and the solutions to solve them. I have two guests with me today, the superintendent from Hutto ISD, home of the Hippos, Dr. Celina Estrada Thomas. Welcome.
Good to be here.
And then I also have Texan transplant, Chad Stevens, the Chief Strategy Officer from ParentSquare. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Now, it's not as cold as Chicago, and we promise we'll make you feel at home back here in Texas today, Chad. So we're excited to have both of you. But I got to jump in. This is my first official visit to Hutto. So I want to ask Dr. Thomas, tell me about your career here. Give us a little bit of the details.
I'm starting my 6th year as superintendent here in Hutto ISD, my 41st year in public education.
Very nice.
It's been my life and my passion. It is, if you drove through town, I'm sure you all got a taste of the uniqueness of the community and the city.
So for people that are listening and may not be aware, there are hippos everywhere, at the businesses, at the homes.
At the schools, everywhere. So there are about close to 3,700 cement hippos located throughout the city.
Oh,
and
wow.
there are people that will come into town just to look for the different hippos. So if you go out to the Dairy Queen, for example, they have a family of hippos, and they're all decorated in the DQ desserts and meals and whatnot. You go out to the automotive place, and they have a hippo decorated with automotive stuff on it.
Now, is it accurate to say that Hutto is the only school district in Texas with the mascot of the hippo in the nation, possibly?
Yes, and we know that we're the only hippos in Texas, and as far as we know, we are the only hippos in the United States. So to our listeners out there, if there are other hippo mascots in the United States, I would love to find out who they are, because we claim to be the only hippos in the country.
So hippos need to put some comments in the comments section and let us know where geographically they are, so we can find you. So talk to me a little bit about the first semester. Give me some highlights from Hutto ISD.
Oh, super highlights. So we have our award-winning robotics team is competing in Frisco as we speak. They're going out for their 6th straight state championship. So they have 5 championships on their belt, and they're looking for that 6th one. Yesterday, I got news that our CTE automotive department, they were spotlighted in the Texas Business Bragging Rights Edition. And so our CTE program is out there. Automotive tech is huge here in Hutto. So lots of bragging rights around CTE, career technology education, for folks who don't know what CTE is.
So you talked to us a little bit about your career experience and your history here. What are some of the barriers that superintendents deal with that you've dealt with in your career?
I wouldn't necessarily call it a barrier, but I would definitely call it a challenge. Mm-hmm. And I think most superintendents would agree that communication is it can be a barrier if you allow it to be, but it is a huge challenge. And I know for us here in Hutto, we don't have a local newspaper, so our only means of getting information out to our families is through social media. Mm-hmm. And prior to us adopting ParentSquare as our tool, we were relying on good old-fashioned traditional emails, campus principals putting out newsletters on s'mores, and just everybody trying to do their very best to get information out to our parents. But our board was highly, highly concerned about the fact that we were not telling our story and we were not getting the good news out. For example, about robotics and our automotive technology program and our health science program and so on. Athletics always does a really good job of getting news out, but the educational pieces, I mean, that's our core business. And so one of the charges that the board gave me as a superintendent is we need to get out front and center and do a better job of reaching our families and letting them know about what's happening with the academic program.
You know, we're sometimes our own worst enemy about
Yes.
not sharing. We're spending so much time either putting out fires or worried about what's going on in the Facebook and not sharing our story and our messaging, because there are so many great things that are happening in schools. We need to do that more intentionally, which kind of leads me to Chad. So ParentSquare, right? I mean, this seems to be a crowded space for technology. Why? What's your why? What's the mission, the vision, the why of why do this? Why serve schools in this capacity?
Yeah, I mean, I think for sure the ed tech space is super crowded, but I think the space that we're in is not. Being a modern family engagement tool with 100% focused on helping people like Dr. Thomas communicate and have that message. You're right. Schools often are on the defensive, and they should be telling all the awesome things that are happening in their schools. So, at the end of the day, we're really about improving the lives of students. I mean, that sounds really simple, but we know that when parents are involved, like there's all this research is out there, when parents are involved, kids do better in school. When parents are involved, they're better, social, emotionally. And so that's really the passion behind our company, our founders, our CEO, our leadership team is really to give everybody that tool so that a school can have that brand to get the great stories out. Also, if there's an emergency, to be able to have that single point of contact and make it really simple for parents to communicate. So, that's kind of where we come from.
I mean, that's so important because within the last 2 years alone, all school districts across the country have had some type of calamity. If it's been COVID, if it's been weather, if it's, God forbid, been some of the things that the security issues that have gone on in school. And much like you, like I've always tried to, hey, let's do the best we can, but we were all doing it differently, even within a small school district like my former district. How has ParentSquare, Dr. Thomas, let you own the messaging and make sure that your parents and your stakeholders are really receiving the information that they need?
Oh my goodness, where do I begin? I think for us, it has been such a game changer in such a short period of time. We rolled out in August, but our communications team was planning and pre-planning with ParentSquare representatives all through the summer.
Right.
I think it has really given us, one, I have metrics. I have hardline metrics. I can tell my board. For example, I know for a fact that 92% of my 9,700 families have emails. And of those 92%, 90% are receiving our messages.
Nice.
And so those are huge numbers. And so now I have our parent and family engagement team following up on, all right, so who are the 8% of our families who don't have emails and why don't they? Do they need help getting that done?
Absolutely.
And so they have that list and they're chipping away at it. But I think something I do want to give credit to our communications team and, of course, our ParentSquare representatives, because something that we did to ease the rollout for ParentSquare in August was that we created internally all of our templates, all the communication templates. So we took the guesswork out of it for our principals and our key communicators. So every campus has a key communicator who is responsible for posting and creating the messages, but they're all created on district-based templates that have the branding, the colors, and all of the vision and the mission. And so all of that goes out with our ParentSquare messaging. So I think that's a key piece where in the past we could have sent an email out or send a text blast out. We had no idea if it was actually reaching our families. And the old system allowed families to block us. And so with ParentSquare, just like Chad was saying, and he mentioned just briefly the emergency communication piece that I think is so critical. We have the ability, even for parents who have delayed messaging, who have opted to receive messages, say after hours, if there's an emergency, we have the ability to push out that emergency notification and make sure that parents are aware of what's happening. Just this Monday, for example, we had an incident on one of our buses. So our transportation team met with our communications team, and they have set up 250 unique route messaging systems. So on Monday, we had an incident on a bus. We were able to craft a message within a few minutes and then shoot that message out to those parents, to the
Right.
parents
That were impacted.
that were affected by that, by what they saw on that bus.
Wow.
And it immediately went out. We didn't have to go look for a bus list and go look for the kids who were there.
Right.
Track
Down the number, the
down the
driver, get
number.
all the stories
All
straight.
of
Yes.
that has already been pre-populated, and they're ready to go.
So, Chad, I want to kick this question over to you. After talking to your team a little bit, once you told me that I could electronically sign permission slips and Monday folders and all that, like I was sold right there without hearing anything else. But I want to ask you about some of the features, the ones that are difference makers for districts like Hutto.
Well, Dr. Thomas has mentioned a few, but I think for our customers, you mentioned secure documents.
Right.
I think I can speak, I'm a former teacher and principal, but also as a parent, we've all put something in a kid's backpack and hoped the teacher saw it. Or as a teacher, I put it in a kid's backpack and hoped their parents saw it. It's nice to be able to go to a dashboard and say they saw it. And there's a level of accountability there, that email, that app notification, that text went out. I think the ability to, one of the features that people really enjoy, it sounds very simple, is scheduling teacher conferences.
Oh, yeah.
Traditionally a really complicated experience, and quite frankly, not a very user-friendly experience or elegant, simple experience for parents. Now, a teacher can just pull that down. Here's when I'm gonna have my conference. Here's when I want to take a break. Parents can sign up. It's tied into the student information system, the student ID. Like we can track those things. And so I think at the end of the day, our tech team, our product team does an absolutely amazing job at building the tools, as I mentioned before, that our schools are asking us for, to help make things more simple. And we really want to make it easy on parents to go to one place to interact with their school. And really, traditionally, parents really haven't had that experience, right? They had, I can pull up my phone and I have a folder of all the different places that a school might contact me, and I would hope that in Hutto, that's just that one app, and
Sure.
parents know that. So, those are a couple of things I would highlight.
Yeah.
So not only for the localized parents and teachers, but Dr. Thomas, how are you using it, like to say, set up your Hang with the Hippos that I know you have?
Yes. So we have a Hang with the Hippos event next Wednesday, and what Hang with the Hippos is it's a community outreach effort, and so I had. Last year, I held the traditional coffee with the superintendent, table talk with the superintendent, and I had my 4 or 5 faithful attendees that would come to my coffees, and we had great conversations, and it was great for those people, but I was really concerned that I was not reaching
Sure.
the larger audiences. And so when we have these events next week, we'll be at Ray Elementary. The Ray Elementary principal helps with the communication that we're going to be at her campus. So we dedicate an hour and a half. We invite community. You have to RSVP, and we do have to limit the number of people that we can host. But the parents and community members who sign up with the Hang with the Hippos have the opportunity to tour the facility. We've recently renovated all of our elementary campuses with the 2019 bond dollars. So it's important for us to be able to showcase what the bond dollars have done for the educational and learning spaces. And so our parents and community have the opportunity to tour the facility, interact with our teachers and with our principals. They get to eat in the cafeteria. They eat in the cafeteria that day. Whatever the kids are going to eat that day is what our family.
That's a lot of pressure.
Yes, it
Food
is.
services is like, that's a lot of pressure. We got to make sure we're on the game.
Because when I have my interactions with kids
Sure.
and I ask them about their experience, the first thing they talk about is food.
Sure.
So we just kind of take that out of the equation. Parents, your kids are asking you for money or for you to bring them lunch because they don't like what's being served in the cafeteria. Come eat in our cafeteria, and I think you'll be pleasantly surprised about what we're serving. So anyhow, the Hang with the Hippos is an opportunity for parents to see the hippos in their natural habitat, and then once we do
Texas, right?
Texas, hey, you got a brand. And once we get done with that, then we actually sit down while they're eating and have a conversation. And parents and community members can ask about taxes. They can ask about bus routes. They can ask about
Sure.
an incident they may have heard about or rumors that they might be flying amok. They have an opportunity to hear from the head hippo, that's me, about
I will never call you that, by the way.
Yeah.
I'll support if you do it, but I will never say that.
So I tell people all the time when I introduce myself at conferences, and Dr. Celina Estrada Thomas, I am the head hippo in Hutto, Texas, the only place in Texas you can call a man or a woman a hippo and not get slapped. It's a point of pride.
That's hilarious. So you're able to use ParentSquare for a variety of opportunities of engagement, which is,
Yes.
I mean, you're a veteran at this and done a great job. But that stakeholder engagement and just making sure everybody has an opportunity to hear
Correct. It's
what's
key.
happening in their schools. That's a fantastic job that you guys are doing. Chad, last one's for you.
Okay.
Give me your value proposition for schools that are looking to increase engagement, to increase opportunity awareness, to increase just interaction between student and teacher and parent. What would you say to them?
Well, I think Dr. Thomas hit on it. She just mentioned, you may not have picked it up in that last sentence, she was trying to reach the last 10, the last 8% of students that they don't have. So what I heard we can get 92%, but I'm trying to get the 8%.
Yep.
And so I think one of the real beautiful things across the country that we're seeing with all our customers is people are finding their voice. Mm-hmm. So because of the translations, which we haven't really mentioned, that we translate into 120 different languages, not just the messaging, but things like forms and the newsletters and things, people feel included and people feel like they have a voice in the district. So, it's awesome being here in Texas, kind of my home state. But getting to travel around the country and seeing all of these groups that really have found their voice with the school is great. So, I mean, to me, the value prop really goes back to parents as customers, right?
Sure.
Parents deserve an experience. And in a place like Texas that's growing very fast, they're also looking at places where they can have a great experience,
Absolutely.
right? And it's a huge part of growth here in Texas and your tax base and all those fun,
Absolutely. Exciting
school finance things that I know superintendents love to talk about. Mm-hmm. But that's part of the deal, right? You want that brand. You want that. I love that you talk about that, the Hippo brand. You want that. And that's really the value prop, is that your parents go to one place. And in places where we're widely adopted in some states and where we kind of began, ParentSquare really becomes like a verb. Well, did you ParentSquare the parents today? Because if you didn't ParentSquare them, then it's not true. And we've had places where they say, well, if we saw this on Twitter. Well, if it's not on ParentSquare,
Doesn't count.
It doesn't count. and how valuable is that, right? Because I mean, don't get me wrong, social media is great and it's a great amplifier, but it can also be very hard to control.
Sure.
So, we know and we hope that we're continuing to help awesome leaders like Dr. Thomas and more schools in Texas. Yeah.
Well, Dr. Thomas, do you want to share a couple of stats that you brought with you?
No, well, at the very beginning, our communications team surveyed the parents about ParentSquare, and they were pleasantly surprised with the feedback. And our team personally reached out to people so they could rate the questions or the items on a 1 through 5, and ratings, and obviously 2 and 1 were low ratings. So our communications team reached out to every single parent who put in a low rating in a particular area and asked, why? How can we help improve what is happening? And so a lot of that dissatisfaction had to do with the fact they did not know how to make adjustments with the notification. So people were at work, they had signed up, they had downloaded the app, and the app was going crazy all day long because teachers were sending out pictures, they were sending out notices, and sending out newsletters, and it was just too much during the day. So just one example of just showing parents how to adjust the notifications on the app just made all the difference in the world. But the other piece I do want to reiterate and emphasize that Chad mentioned was the translation piece. So we're not a very big district, 9,700 kids, but we have 24 different languages.
Oh, wow.
Spoken.
I would not have guessed that. Wow.
24 different languages spoken in our district. And so that the ability for our families to receive the information in the language that makes sense to them is so critical. So I think that was, for us, that was one of the big selling points when we were looking at a communication tool this past spring, and the ability for our parents to reach the messaging in any format that was available to them was key.
Okay, so beyond the practical applications with teachers and kids, who else is using ParentSquare within your district?
Well, our child nutrition department has completely, they have fully embraced the communication tool. So our child nutrition folks are able to send notices to parents when their accounts start running low or when they hit the negative. So again, they know that our parents are connected through ParentSquare, and they are assured that our parents are going to receive those timely notices. Again, so they can replenish the accounts or take care of negative balances.
You know how many times I've missed that because it's been an automated call, and I'm just thinking, how does my son spend $10 on one meal? I don't quite understand it, but that's beyond the point. But sometimes I miss it because it's an automated call that I don't recognize the number I'm not in tune with. So that's a great opportunity for parents. Okay, let me dump $20 more into his account.
Right. Well, and the other piece that we have on the calendar, we have a district-wide council of all of our PTA officers, and so the PTA now is interested in jumping on board so they can get their notices out. So it's a matter of just training our communication liaisons with our PTAs because obviously as parents they're receiving the notices, and so they're already thinking, well, how can we get our notices out as the PTA about all the events and the fundraisers that they put on.
Now, Chad, is the best practice to have a champion when you have so many groups that want to be a part of this?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I do think there's a tendency that you've all of a sudden put this great communication tool in everybody's hand, and so we're spending a lot of time with our engagement team, like thinking about best practice guides, how to launch, and really get into like what's the best way to do communication planning. Mm-hmm. There's I believe that there's the term I use is absorbability. There's so much absorbability of a message, right? So we know that in the platform, to your point, parents can choose, right? I want to digest. I want a daily. I want, if the teacher messages me, I want it now, but all these other types of
kind of a tiering of the
so
messaging.
You can tier it, and I think that's part of evolution as we think about the way people use the tool. But I think it is a best practice to have kind of a champion. Mm-hmm. But before ParentSquare, those probably existed.
Sure.
Those existed in schools, and I think Dr. Thomas hits on something. We do have a community groups feature where you can. We notice that, we're tied into the student information system. So those are who's in the system. But like we were talking before the podcast started, I'm the chairman of the board of Local Education Foundation. I may want to be able to get people into the community. And we have the ability through community groups for people to opt in and sign in for messages. And so it's another feature that kind of builds community, builds brand, builds trust within the school district. So but it's definitely very important to have a plan, and it's something that our customer success team I think does a really good job of helping people out. But yeah, it can be overwhelming, right? You're like, here, transportation, here, food, child nutrition, here's all the, you can all message parents now. So you definitely want to think about what you're doing.
Right. That makes sense. Well, great insight. And I want to thank you both for joining us on this TALAS Partnership Spotlight. It's been a learning experience for me. And, you know, it sounds like you're off and running with student engagement. So congratulations to Hutto ISD and all the Hippos out there. Soon to be 2 high schools.
Soon to be 2 high schools. Well, we've got that 9th grade center up and running.
There you go. And Chad, thank you from flying back to the home state, the only state of Texas. We appreciate you being here as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
I'd like to thank all of our viewers today for joining us on this TALAS Partnership Spotlight. And please don't hesitate to drop some comments in the comment section below. Thank you.
Produced by Podcast Architects.